Welcome to Smart Brown Voices, your weekly podcast featuring diverse voices from around the world, giving you insights on how others made it big in their respective fields. Now sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready to be inspired. And don't forget to use hashtag #SmartBrownVoices to share insights, moments of wisdom, and things from the show that inspire you. And now, here's your host, social media nerd and technology activist, Mr. Mike Street.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your host. It's Mr. Mike Street. I am back after a long hiatus. So you got to check out the previous episode before this one, because I kind of go into all the details of why I've been away and everything that's been going on and the evolution of Smart Brown Voices. But we're back and we're here to stay. And thank you guys so much for making these past 2 months our biggest month of downloads to date. Our traffic on this show has tripled in size. So it's a lot of you really checking out all the past episodes and listening to our content. So everyone out there who's been a supporter of the show, thank you so much. And let's get going. So I was reading on Medium the other day a really interesting article, and something that I believe is 100% true is that Black people really have helped to push the internet forward in leaps and bounds. And so today's guest is Mark. And he's going to talk to us about his amazing article that he wrote and a little bit of history about what he's been doing in the internet space as well. So, Mark, introduce yourself to the Smart Brown Voices audience.
Hey there. My name is Mark Luckie. I am the former manager of journalism news at Twitter and also the former head of media and journalism at Reddit. Before that, I was a reporter in many different newsrooms, a big technology aficionado, and a big writer about the current state of technology as it pertains to diversity.
All right, so let's jump into it. You wrote this really amazing piece, and, I had to share it probably 100 times because, it was I was like, yes, finally someone has put out there what we all know to be true, is that a lot of these platforms wouldn't be popular or wouldn't exist without, the content that's coming from, brown and Black creators. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that article, but I really want your opinion on Vine, because, that's really been recently in the news. And, a lot of the creators from Vine, were Black and brown. And some of the, one of the big ones that became a part of popular culture was eyebrows on fleek. And that was something that, came out of Vine culture. So talk to us a little bit about, what you're really trying to say with your article.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So Vine, for those of you who haven't seen it, is an app that lets you record 6 seconds of video on a loop. And when Vine was first introduced, it was to show little moments of what was happening around you. Here's you going to a meal, or here's you with your family. And then a lot of Vine creators, as they're called, specifically a lot of Black and brown people, started using it in more creative ways. They were doing skits, sort of like an SNL or an In Living Color. They were doing creative editing. They were really taking the platform far beyond what the Vine creators imagined for it. And so Vine had a huge millennial audience. It had lots of people who are tuning in, looking at these 6 second loops just to, get that pop culture moment. And as you mentioned, not only on fleek, but a lot of the conversations that are in our vernacular, a lot of the internet language that we speak is related to the content that came out of Vine. So what happened recently is the company Twitter announced that it would be shutting down. Twitter acquired Vine a couple of years ago, and now those creators have already gone to other platforms. Starting a few years ago, they were transferring off to Snapchat and to Instagram because they could find wider audiences. And what Vine and a lot of other social networks failed to do is to partner with these Black and brown creators, these people who are creating original content. And they do it to their detriment. When a lot of social networks start out, they want to partner with celebrities and news media and influencers, but the people who are actually on the ground creating the content, and this is across many social networks, are not getting the recognition that they deserve.
Now you worked in a lot of these tech companies. Why do you feel that? Why do you feel a lot of the brown and black creators? Is it just that they're not getting their just dues or their type of internal respect or love? Like, because a lot of them, especially if you look at let's look at like King Bach, for example. He's making tons of money off of his social platform, which grew out of places like Vine. But do you feel like it's just a lack of respect, or do you feel it's just that the people on the inside just don't get it yet?
Yeah, I think the people on the inside don't get it because they don't have these sort of people in their lives. You'll see with any measure of the employment of Silicon Valley and with social networks that the average workforce consists of 2% African Americans, and much less when it comes to Latino Native American employees. And so for a lot of them, it's sort of outside culture. It's something that they don't immediately understand or grasp. They know what's happening. And from a business perspective, there is a disconnect in terms of, okay, these people are on our platform, they're doing great things, but they don't really know how to approach it. And I can tell you in the social networks that I've worked with, and many colleagues across many other companies will tell you, whether they work in sales or marketing or business development or even engineers, you'll have your white colleagues come up to you and say, hey, we've got this black thing that's happening. Can you please explain black people to us? And so it becomes this, if you don't have black and brown people in the building, then you're missing out on opportunities to have conversations. Now, we as a people are very enterprising, and that's why you see these Vine stars now becoming millionaires, having TV and advertising deals, because we know how to hustle. But we've done that without the input or without the partnership from these particular organizations, which is, it's really sad to see.
So talk to us a little bit more about, some of the other details of your articles, because you go pretty in depth, because you talk about, we've heard terms like Black Twitter, but, you take it even steps further, as there's Black Tumblr, Black Snapchat. Even I've seen tons of black people actually using platforms like Periscope to do online conferences around black business. So why do you feel like we haven't heard about some of these other platforms when it really comes to terms of multicultural? But why does it even matter for a lot of the businesses out there today?
Mm-hmm. So a lot of these platforms, you'll see individual stories. You'll see an individual story about Black Twitter, or you may hear something about Black Tumblr. For something that's smaller, that has a more concentrated audience like Tumblr, if you're not in that experience, you don't really understand or could even see that these black audiences are making a huge impact on the platform. And because they're so disparate, people don't see the big picture. And that's what I was trying to provide, is that, okay, it's not just these individual places, but black people, brown people are affecting all social media. And you have to take it from that lens. You have to step a bit further back and see, now, wait a minute, there's this huge influence that's happening across the internet. And just like there is a lack of diversity in tech companies, there's a lack of diversity in media. And you will have the same thing where it has to be the black and brown reporters who are explaining to their wider audiences, here is what is happening in your world. And those stories, unfortunately, and just from my observation, are actually few and far between. So we're not educating people who may not be entrenched in these social media platforms the way we possibly could.
And so one of the great lines from your article is that where black people go, the internet goes. You either have to get smart or get left behind. Talk to us a little bit about that line, because that was one thing that really, stood out to me, and that's how you end the article as well.
Well, as an observer of social media trends and as a former journalist, I see black people shifting the culture, not just online, but offline. We've done it for decades. That's just who we are. Again, that creativity comes into play. And for people not to capitalize on that, or at least partner in some way, it can be the make or break moment for their company. We've seen that with Vine. We've seen that with other spaces. And, some advertisers, one of the lines that I actually left out is sometimes they co-opt or just straight up rip off Black culture. But in my mind, at least they are acknowledging it in some way. It may not be the best way, especially for those original creators, but they see the potential. They see the revenue. They see the advertising dollars. They see the potential for expansion in markets that they are not entrenched in. And so for companies to just completely ignore and say, that's a thing, we don't have to worry about it, we don't have to worry about the diversity on our platform, then it leaves huge demographics behind, and it's a place where their company can't reach, and that's going back to the money, potential advertising dollars and revenue. And you can't do that as a company. It's just to say, we're going to completely disregard it. And in the Black Lives Matter era, Black people are just being much more vocal about it. And you can't also ignore the outcry in response to your company. There are companies like Airbnb who respond only when they have a negative press cycle around them. And by then, the damage is too late. So that's why I say you have to get on board. You have to understand. And you have to, most importantly, to acknowledge that this audience exists.
And I think you raise a really good point, because it's really not, it's an audience that exists, but it's also a heavily influential audience. If you look at the reports that Nielsen has done, they even have various statistics that state that, African Americans are seen by Caucasian and Latino audiences as really the influencers of culture. It can be from a phrase like eyebrows on fleek, or, the shoe money dance, or anything else. Every white person on TV was doing, what was that? The Nene.
Yes.
All of that stuff.
Not to mention all the challenges, but you can take that to the other side of the spectrum, which is a lot of these political movements that we're witnessing originated on social media. They originated on Periscope. Vine in particular was where people who were down in Ferguson, it was the only medium that they had to share very quickly a video of what was happening down there. Live streams weren't working. And so that's where that movement first started, if you take a look at it. And now these movements are a part of the discussion, the political discussion. You see political candidates responding to Black Lives Matter. What does this mean? How can I create a platform on it? And so not only is it on the entertainment side of things, but you see it affecting like a wide range of other fields as well.
And very true, because it means starting to affect policy in the way that, that all of our politicians really need to communicate, because, back in the day, it would take months, or if not much longer, for one story to travel across the country, but now it's pretty much in seconds. We can see, if someone's getting, shot with Facebook Live, as we saw a couple of months ago. So the technology has really helped to shine a light and really open up the conversation around all of these social injustice that has been really going on. Yes. One of the things I want to ask you is, so if I'm a creator, let's go back to, Precious and eyebrows on fleek. How could she have made money and monetized herself? Because I always felt like, all of the other brands kind of jacked her terminology and who she was. And, we saw places like IHOP saying pancakes on fleek and things like that. And then, but I don't feel like she ever really, was able to monetize, that and to make it into something more. And then you look at other, you look at someone like, the Dan Daniel guys, they got college scholarships and were on Ellen and things of that nature. Or Chewbacca Mom, who she got tons of money and tons of endorsement. So how do our creators and our community, how can we, when we have those, lightning in the bottle moments, how can we really capitalize?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll start with saying, the Chewbacca Mom and a couple of other successes that you see, widespread successes. I mean, it is really rooted in white privilege, where people see a reflection of themselves and they can identify with it. Whereas on Fleek, they're like, that must be, something that's over there. I really don't understand that. That's another culture, even if it's really pervasive. And again, for something like IHOP, they can they can commodify it, and not only did they do it, but tons of other brands. For Black people, we have to hustle. And having started a few companies as well, there are two important things. One is being your own cheerleader, being your own messenger, and saying, "Hey, I was the one who did that." Talking to the press, putting your message out there, getting not only that, but also your followers on social media to acknowledge, to get the word out for you on your behalf. The other way to capitalize on that is actually merchandise as well. We see that other people are creating shirts and bags and phone cases and what have you based on popular culture phrases. That's an opportunity. But I don't want to take away from the fact that sometimes people are just being creative for the sake of creativity. They're not necessarily looking to monetize. But those who have taken those two elements and built it into their strategy to take it even further.
So, Mark, tell us a little bit. How did you break through? Because you worked at Reddit, which is huge, and you worked at Twitter, which is also huge. So, how were you able to, break through and work for like really two big tech companies like that?
Throughout my career, I've been able to leapfrog by being more aware of what's coming up than other people in the room. And so I say from time to time, like, I'm not particularly special in terms of my skill set, even though what I do can surpass a lot of people. But my knowledge base is certainly further than a lot of people because I'm looking to see what's happening in the future. It all started when I was at the School of Journalism at UC Berkeley for my grad school studies. And because I had already been studying coding, I've been studying video and audio and Photoshop and all these places, I had an advantage over my colleagues who were also studying digital journalism. And because of that, I was able to start training the top editors in the world on how to use social media. And so throughout my career, I've also had something happening on the side, whether that's starting a site called 10,000 Words, which was this huge resource for journalism, going on to write my first book, The Digital Journalist Handbook, went on to write another novel, or my first novel, which was about students at a historically Black college, created something called Today in Black Twitter, which algorithmically distributed, here are the top tweets that are happening on the platform. It was really about, how can I create something that's different from what's already out there? Can you create another Facebook, another Twitter? Technically, yes, but that audience is already there. You have to think about what's different. What are the ideas that are different for you? And most importantly, the mantra that I always keep in mind is you will succeed because others will not try. And so you have to try. There are lots of ideas out there that people don't ever push forward on. Sometimes, it's as simple as, there's a job out there that I want. And you say, I don't like my job, but I'm comfortable, that kind of thing. And people don't push forward. And for me, if you look at my resume, it's kind of crazy because if a job isn't working out for me, if I don't see a future, if I'm not developing myself, I'll leave. And you would think that would be a detriment, but it's been my greatest asset in terms of furthering my career.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much for coming on Smart Brown Voices.
Thank you.
I've been following your career for a good while now, so it's great to really talk to you. And congratulations on all of your success.
Thank you very much.
And so tell all of our followers how everyone can follow you on social media.
I'm on all the social medias. Just look for me, Mark S. Luckie, Luckie. You can also follow my latest venture, Sold Out Cinema, SOULED Out Cinema, at soldoutcinema.com.
All right, guys. Thank you, Mark, for being on the show. And thank you guys for listening out there on Smart Bound Voices. So, guys, I'm going to link to his article. Please, please, please make sure that you share it out with everyone because it's a great read. I think it really kind of just validates a lot of the things that all of us are listening. And I want to challenge you. If you see an influencer out there and you feel like they, have struck gold, but don't know like a direction to go, reach out to them and help them out. Make sure that they can kind of figure out the way and the path to with their content, especially all of our marketers out there who are listening to the show. Reach out to, the Preciouses of the world or those people out there who you've seen have hit on something really cool. and help them out and help them kind of take that direction. I think one of the things that's missing in our community is the mentorship from people like myself and who can help some of these influencers really take their strategy or take their content to the next level, because that's what I want to see us doing moving forward. All right, guys, that's it. Send me an email if you have any more questions about this episode, and we'll be back next week with more. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to Smart Brown Voices with your host, Mr. Mike Street. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts, and make sure to follow us on social media. This has been a Mr. Mike Street production. Join us next time for another edition of Smart Brown Voices, and be inspired.